Welcome to episode 6 of Flies on the Ball. This week we summarise the latest round of Premier League fixtures and look at all the happenings that went on there, along with taking a look at Gareth Southgate's potential options for the World Cup.
Should we start with Watford maybe? Given they've got rid of another manager. He only picked up 7 points in his few months in charge, which is
how many points the first manager, not their first, but their last manager picked up in the first 7 games of the season.
Consistency is key. It's an abysmal record, so I can understand why they decided to do it. And Watford are quite trigger happy anyway, so I'm not surprised they did it or replaced him with Hodgson, because Hodgson's a safe bet.
Yep, I wonder how long he'll last. I would guess probably not until the end of the season.
Well, what's happened to Cisco, the first guy they sacked in October? I don't actually remember him at all. Their previous manager before Ranieri. Cisco.
I don't remember what happened to him. I just know he came from Dynamo Tbilisi or something.
Yes. Oh, he's at Huesca now. He's at Huesca.
Oh, okay. So he's in. Is that in La Liga or second division?
I've lost track of how many managers they've had.
It's in Spain.
It's in second division now, I think. They finished 18th last season and were relegated.
Relegated.
And Watford and Ranieri was done for by a defeat against Norwich, which
3-0.
He was Norwich's second win in a row.
Yeah. They're picking up form.
Yes, but can they? Well, first of all, Newcastle have a game in hand over them and are 1 point behind, and Newcastle have a lot of money and some new signings.
And Burnley
2 new signings only.
Burnley have 4 games in hand, even though that's no guarantee they'll pick up points.
Yeah, and I don't think they will pick up points. Well, I mean, they might pick up some, but I don't think they'll pick up maximum points. I don't think they'll even pick up a point per game on average from those 4. That said, they managed to draw against Arsenal.
One thing that's going to help out Norwich, though, is was it Josh Sargent has opened his account at long last.
Yeah,
and one of the goals was absolutely brilliant. They almost ruled it out, and it would have been. It was one of those goals where it would have been an absolute shame had they ruled it out because it was fantastic.
That was a good goal.
Yeah,
that was
the sort of like what almost looked like an unintentional flick.
Yeah, that thing.
Yeah,
reminds me of Origi's flick against I think Preston North End in the League Cup, where the ball just went over his shoulder, and he bent a bit forward, flicked his right foot back near to his head, and just whacked it in.
The third goal, though. Technically wasn't a Norwich goal. It was actually Kuchka who came on as a sub and then scored an own goal, which, okay, there we go then.
Talk about impact subs.
What quite the super sub, yeah.
Yeah, I feel kind of bad for Ranieri because he seems like a nice chap, but I don't think he had much of a shot at Watford, to be honest.
And he's, of course, forever known with that famous Leicester title win. So he's clearly a capable manager.
Well, you wonder, because his job since in the Premier League, like including his second season at Leicester, not quite as stellar, and in fact, nowhere near really.
Oh yeah, that first Leicester season, fluky in the extreme, but you can't just luck your way to a title, I suppose. So
it'll always be one of football's great mysteries, I guess.
Yeah, everything came together perfectly, basically.
It's because they buried Richard III.
Yeah. Got some royal patronage, I suppose. But yeah, I'm not surprised. Yeah, if you lose 3-0 to Norwich in whatever form Norwich are in, then that's not really acceptable.
It's the second week in a row a team has sacked their manager immediately after losing to Norwich.
That's
which is funny, especially when you consider that Norwich sacked their last manager after his first win.
I've just seen Sargent's goal just now. And it was a bit like the Giroud's Puskas flick.
Against Palace.
Like a closer, against Palace. Except a lot closer. And this one was similar. After a deflection as well. I think it was a cross into Sargent and it deflected off.
It's just pure instinct, really. Sometimes you just...
Yeah.
You don't think, you just do.
Yeah. Well, worst thing, of course, about this game, though, is Mr. Emmanuel Dennis.
Oh, yes. Our fantasy woes. I mentioned this in our previous episode. How many of us captained him? Or we all captained him the previous week, but
I did.
Yeah.
I
So
thought
Ben
we-
and James kept him captain.
I made the smart decision to not captain Dennis, and I could have captained Ramsdale or Rudiger, or basically anyone, and I captained Trent, who got a whole 2 points. So
I captained
you know.
Jota, who got
Also-
a penalty, he says in quotation marks.
Oh god. I viced him, which would have been a lot more prudent than -2.
Yeah, for some reason I replaced the captain. I moved the captaincy from Dennis to Jota not long before, just because I thought Jota played well against Arsenal in the League Cup semi-final. Maybe he'll continue that form. And lo and behold, Dennis gets a red, so that's him gone completely. And Jota doesn't do a lot, but yeah,
Wins a penalty at
wins
the
a
very
penalty.
least.
But of course, the goals are scored by the least likely players to score: Virgil, Ox, Fabinho.
all the defender contributions as well. The assist from Robertson.
Yeah, Robbo, 2 assists. I'm tempted to bring him back in. Well, I say back in. I haven't had him this season yet. But
I've had him
Either
in my
him-
draft since day one, which I don't even. Nobody cares about. I don't even care about it.
I'm definitely focusing just on the regular team draft. I can barely keep a lead at a regular, so I've got to focus on that. And I'll definitely bring Salah back because he'll be returning very soon.
I feel like before we go back to Palace Liverpool, because there was an interesting penalty decision in that one, and that will no doubt result in us having a long discussion about VAR, a weekly long discussion about VAR. Just like going through the other games first. So then there's Everton Villa, the most played fixture in the history of English football, as they keep telling us.
They did have an equal number of wins, I think, until that game.
Yeah, in rather controversial circumstances as well. So
An
many
equal number
controversial
of
games.
wins. Sorry, they had surely not the most games played together, and they just happened to have won exactly the same amount until this
The
game.
most,
Or is this
I believe so. I heard that. I need
that
to
would be
check that.
insanity?
Insanity manifest.
And yeah, so in the Everton game, obviously, the Everton fans weren't too happy at Gerrard, obviously, because it's Gerrard.
No, I don't see the connection at all. No.
No connection at all. And they also gave a lot of shtick to Digne, right?
Yes.
Yeah. They also threw
Yeah.
things at Digny.
They threw things, yes. The
Luca Dean.
fans. Something that's becoming Luca Dean. That's it, yeah.
They threw a bottle. When Villa scored, they threw a bottle and a coin at least. That's what we saw on
Yeah.
camera.
It's becoming a lot more common, fans throwing things at games. Or at least, I say a lot more common. It's becoming a lot more common for it to be shown and talked about.
Yeah. There was a bottle was thrown at the Palace game on the pitch, but it was nowhere near anyone. So no one thought it was just randomly thrown on the pitch.
That just says it
okay.
all, really, about Palace, doesn't it?
So there was a Lucas bottle thrown nowhere near anyone. So it's just, are you littering or are you bad at throwing? It's hard to tell, but yeah, it wasn't. I don't think that was caught on camera. But yeah, the Villa are picking up more points. They keep having. I think Coutinho is going to be quite a good signing for them. He didn't do much in the Everton match. Fitness is still not as it needs to be, but I think he gives them a more creative dynamic in midfield.
11 losses, Aston Villa, is that? Yeah.
But more losses,
Total
though.
across the season?
More losses, though, is Everton, of course.
Yeah.
Still in
Everton have
free
lost
fall.
more than Newcastle and Burnley, I believe.
Yes. Burnley haven't played.
Although, they've only got 2 games in hand over Everton, so even if they lost both their games in hand, they'd still have lost less games
Yeah.
than Everton.
Wow.
Yeah.
They've
that's
just
true.
they've just only got 1 win. Another team that only had 1 win before this weekend was Newcastle, who beat Leeds at Ellen Road, which is just typical Leeds after a great performance against West Ham to go away. Well, not to even go away, to go home and lose to a team that has only won once all season.
Would you say Newcastle deserved that win?
No, I don't think they did. They benefited from a catalogue of Leeds mistakes that happened in one period of the game. Leeds had a lot of attacking throughout the entire game and just missed their chances. But we didn't have a real striker on the pitch. We were playing a winger in our striking position. So I think we rued that a bit. The amount of balls that came into the 6-yard box, but no one was there to pop them in. Because, Harrison's a winger, Rafinha's a winger, James is a winger. It's, yeah. So from the way the game was played, if you just watch Match of the Day, you would probably believe that Newcastle were the better team.
The goal was a bit lucky as well, to be fair. Meslier should have saved it. It went kind of...
Yeah.
It was close enough for him to stop.
It was a catalogue of Leeds errors. There was no one player at fault. So, like, the Roberts lost the ball high up the field. The person who was supposed to be marking the guy who got the ball wasn't at the time. Then Llorente didn't need to make the foul, and then Meslier should have saved it. It looked like his vision was blocked, and he was complaining that his vision was blocked as the shot was taken. But yeah, nothing came of that. Newcastle won. I wouldn't say it was a fair result on how the game was played, but, you know, they won. They got the 3 points. That's, you know, I guess the other way of looking at it is if you win, then you deserve to win.
Yeah, that's quite a binary way of looking at it, because you can, work really hard and just not
and still lose.
Get the result, yeah.
Yeah, I think based on how the actual game was played, I think Leeds were the better team. But Newcastle walked away with all 3 points, and fair enough. Their second win of the season.
What do you think of the Southampton City game? Southampton worked really hard and were, apart from a moment of, it was more of a lapse in concentration. They could have got 3 points. Lovely goal from Walker Peters, and City worked City were actually really good. That's why I was so impressed with Southampton. City played really well, but only got a draw.
Did Pep Guardiola say that was City's best performance of the season or something? Yeah.
Because they did work really hard and they were dominating possession, but Southampton were well organised and really dogmatic. So that was a fair result, I think.
Yeah, I didn't actually watch that game, so...
Well, it was definitely worth a watch. A bit
I
late
watched
now.
the highlights.
Yeah.
But the highlights never show you the full story.
I don't know if it's the highlights or if it's just an actual phenomenon where, like, towards the end of the game, towards the end of the highlights and things, there's always it's the team with the most to play for. It's sort of like they're showing you all the chances that the losing team's getting, or or maybe they just do make more chances. As sounds like a silly point actually. they are going to make more chances if they're pushing for the result more, but all the scariest like crossbar hits and things happen in extra time, injury time and stuff. It's a lot of late action in a lot of games. I wonder if
there is, yeah.
And also you can't really include every key moment in a highlights package.
No, of course you can't. No, they'd be ridiculously long if you did.
So, for example, Frank at Brentford said that his side dominated Manchester United in their loss the other week. But there are 4 goals, and you've only got a few minutes for the highlights package, so you're going to have to keep an eye on prioritising the goals. So it won't necessarily reflect what the manager thinks, and of course each manager's view is biased. And then you can cite the stats, but then that's another matter. Yeah, my clean sheet with Saar was ruined.
I had Ramsdale on in goal, so mine was kept intact.
To be fair, Tony's goal was very good. It was deserving.
Would you say Tony has been a bit disappointing this season, given the hype? He hasn't done a lot.
Maybe a little bit, but at the same time, I guess it's always going to be a little difficult for a striker to adjust to the Premier League.
Yeah, true. It's the making of a player, I suppose.
Yeah.
But yeah, Wolves are hard to break down anyway. They are well organised.
Was it 2-1?
Yeah, 2-1.
Wolves-Brentford game.
I think Neves scored the winner.
So Brentford have lost 4 in a row now.
Mm.
They sit at 12 losses, which I think is the most, other than Norwich and Watford. It is.
Yeah.
How are they still a point off of Palace? Good God.
Because they've won 6 games. They're not
they've won
too
more
many.
than Palace have. God.
Yeah.
Oh.
Brentford seem...
Which is pretty impressive.
They should be safe, Brentford, but their form of late has not been very good.
Yeah, we discussed it a bit last time. So 23 points. Most teams, in fact, every team below them has games in hand over them. Some of them, well, Burnley have 5.
Burnley for the league.
Watford and Everton have 3. Newcastle has, and Leeds have 2, and Everton and Norwich have 1 game in hand over Brentford. So
I don't think it can be overstated how important Raya was to their play, and how even if you just having that stability in goal,
there's been a noticeable change.
Important. Yeah,
there's definitely been a change since he's been injured. Maybe that's it. But then again, surely they should be able to adapt, or I don't know.
You'd hope so, but injuries can completely knock a team.
Yeah, definitely.
But they're thinking about signing, or are on the verge of signing, Christian Eriksen.
He's currently training with the Ajax reserves, I think, just to improve his fitness. Thereafter, he may be going to Brentford.
I didn't clock it initially, but there is the Danish connection, of course.
Seeing little coincidences like that makes you wonder briefly from the outside if that was the leading.
Maybe actually, is this one of those stories again where people have just gone, what sounds like a sort of believable speculation?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because of his heart. It was a heart attack, wasn't it, on the pitch at the Euros?
Yeah, cardiac arrest.
So it'd be interesting to see if he can play at such a level as the Premier League and how much time he plays. It'd be great to see a player who has suffered such an issue be able to play again at that level, because I think it's safe to say most wouldn't be able to. They wouldn't be allowed to. So if he can and he's cleared for that, then that'd be great to see, I think.
Yeah, I must admit I was surprised that he didn't just retire straight away, because as you said, most players who suffer this stop straight away.
Yeah.
So it'll be nice to see him play again, but you've always got that doubt in the back of your mind. It's happened once. Yes, he has the thing now inserted, but who knows if it's a guarantee.
I mean, I imagine if he's still got the ability, though, which I'm supposing he does still have, then yeah.
You'd assume so.
Then yeah, I don't see why not, assuming he's healthy and everything. It's not like he suffers a cardiac arrest once and then therefore every time he does any form of intense physical exercise, oh god.
No, yeah, but I think he will need much more careful monitoring and probably his minutes being managed a lot more. I don't think he'll be playing 90 minutes week in, week out.
Possibly,
right?
definitely won't.
But yeah, so with Newcastle and all their money, which we've talked about a fair amount, what do we think could actually be done? Not to stop Newcastle specifically, because that would be a very harsh way of looking at it. And we know teams have done this before, like Manchester City
and Chelsea.
Yeah, but if we want to avoid this becoming commonplace, which you could argue it already is, becoming more commonplace, but if we want to stop it, how do we stop it?
Well, you need maybe a regulator. So on the one hand, a regulator to not only keep the big clubs in check, thereby preventing another breakaway Super League idea, also to make sure that financial fair play is actually enacted properly, because the FFP is a bit of a joke, really. It's not observed properly.
It absolutely is. I mean, wasn't Man City's FFP delayed until it was no longer enforceable?
Man City never actually showed... Yeah, they were indicted a year or two ago, but never fully showed... Or just couldn't find the documents, basically, to suggest that they had conducted any wrongdoings in previous years. So, very dubious stuff. So, to prevent another... City, Chelsea, and Newcastle. Yeah, it's hopeful.
It's hopeful, just like trying to get them to work, even something as inconsequential as VAR, comparatively inconsequential. They can't sort VAR out and use that.
But
right.
VAR doesn't bode well, given they aren't really using it.
There are things you can do. So, I for one, I think they might actually be bringing in loan caps to the amount of players you can have on loan or loan out.
Mm-hmm.
Which will affect teams like Chelsea not being able to have a massive loan army, and I think that's a positive move.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Because that means they can't hoard players, like for instance Gallagher, who's not really going to get first team opportunities with them, or at least wouldn't have before this year. I mean, next year he might, right? We don't know.
Still somewhat doubtful.
They've got such.
Yeah.
But Tuchel has sort of indicated that he would want him to go and compete for a place there.
But Tuchel might not be there next season.
True. But it would stop things like that where, you've got a Palace, you've got a player at a club like Palace who is playing well, fits with the system, presumably likes it there and is making friends there, and might want to stay there, but then could just be recalled to his parent club and maybe shipped off somewhere else or maybe never play.
It reminds me of Ruben Loftus-Cheek. Had a really good season at Palace, I think 17-18.
Yep.
Went back to Chelsea, got injured on a dumb AstroTurf pitch that they were playing just before the Europa League final, 2019. And since then, he's had some games for Chelsea, but
He had
He's been
he had a
yeah.
few sporadic appearances recently, but yeah, not nothing too consistent though, and nothing that's really cemented his place in the first team. Because if you were to ask Chelsea fans who their first team midfield is, they probably wouldn't say Ruben Loftus-Cheek.
I doubt anyone would really.
No.
He's one of those unfulfilled potential players.
He was so good for Palace that season that he actually got called up to the World Cup.
Yeah.
Which is great, and like I mean, I think Gallagher's been called up to the England squad now as well. Hasn't
he has.
At least once, and
The
he
Palace
might be
effect.
there. We don't know. Well, we don't really know who Southgate's going to choose, but you'd think he'd at the very least be in the
He should be in the squad.
circle.
He should be in the
in the squad. Yeah.
Even if he doesn't play, he's merited a part. Yeah, a part.
At the very least, and just a completely unrelated side point. It's nice to see how many players Southgate is picking that aren't just players from teams like Man City and stuff like that. Like we have Declan Rice from West Ham, Calvin Phillips from Leeds, Gallagher from Palace.
Yeah, but
well,
even so,
Gallagher
yeah,
from
like with
Palace.
Gallagher, he's still a Chelsea player though, isn't he?
He is still a Chelsea player, but I mean, right now he's a Palace player.
He bleeds for Palace.
But yeah, but that's a side point.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
So, yeah.
I don't get what you mean. In the old days, well, I say the old days, about 10 odd years ago, you'd have mostly United, Arsenal, Chelsea, City, Liverpool players.
Yeah, like-
no players from another club would get the chance to express themselves.
No. And this was
play for England,
supposedly our
so-
golden generation, right?
Yeah, and they couldn't get them to work
The
together.
golden generation that didn't work together and won nothing.
Wasn't that just because talent was just a bit more concentrated back then, whereas now it's maybe a little more democratized? I mean, I only say a
Yeah,
little more,
maybe.
not that much, because there's still a chance that players like Calvin Phillips and Declan Rice could get swept up by
And that's the sort of stuff that I think a independent regulator and better rules could help stop. Like if you put transfer caps and wage caps on, suddenly those teams can't bid whatever they want to force a player to move,
yeah.
and can't pay whatever they want to encourage that, like as in to force the club to sell, and then can't pay whatever they want to the player to convince the player to move.
Of course, if they implemented salary caps, though, it would only really work if everyone did that, because as in like other leagues. Because otherwise, what will happen is,
I guess, yeah.
Otherwise, what will happen is if you got like one league that's got a salary cap and then another league that's got, well, it's completely unregulated in that department, then there's a strong likelihood that a number of players would just go there.
That's true.
Which would be interesting to see, to be fair.
Yeah.
It would be interesting.
Say if it was just
to
the
see.
Bundesliga that did it, and the Bundesliga became like the biggest league in Europe.
Yeah. The problem is if we don't do something about it, you get things like Man City
Yeah.
just buying out the release clause of Grealish.
Oh, yeah.
And Grealish has barely played for Man City. I know that Grealish was offered a higher wage. Sorry. I know that Grealish was offered a higher wage at Aston Villa to stay than he's actually getting paid at Man City, supposedly.
Wow.
And so he went there to get Champions League football, and fair enough, that's a career move.
Trophies in
That's-
European football, yeah, but he doesn't seem to
Yeah.
fit it. He doesn't seem to fit
No.
with the Guardiola system. Maybe he doesn't work hard, or Guardiola clearly has an issue with him. But £100 million for a player you can afford not to play, practically no clubs aside from City and Chelsea, maybe United can
Yeah,
afford
and it's
that.
not like it's not like they played him for loads and then realised he's not working out and sort of then benched him. They just the Man City rotation, right? They just sort of rarely play, or not rarely, but they don't always play the same players. It's weird, and I don't think Aston Villa would have sold, because I think it was done through a release clause, and I don't think Aston Villa would have sold him if that release clause wasn't there.
They definitely wouldn't have wanted to, no.
No, and so, if you have these transfer caps, then it becomes less lucrative for the actual, or it becomes less easy for the actual clubs to just buy, to use their money to hammer other clubs with. Because a club like Aston Villa, £100 million means a lot more than it does to a club like Man City. If you have transfer caps on, then they can't just batter you with that to take your best players. They have to play fair like everyone else. Yeah. And you could do, if you can't have wage caps because players would move, you could still do transfer caps. As in transfer fee caps.
Yeah, and then to be fair, more clubs in the Premier League have more money nowadays as broadcasting rights money has trickled down through big contracts or playoff final contracts and so on. So more clubs can afford to upgrade their infrastructure and so on and develop their talents.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's still
But it's
dominated
still
by a select few.
imbalanced.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you think about it, the money that comes in through European football is huge. And up until, like, it is usually the same 6 teams year in and year out. And I think last year, Arsenal and Tottenham didn't make it into the Europa League. But, I mean, Tottenham still got European football because they created a new European... They didn't
Conference
create it for
League,
Tottenham to keep Tottenham in Europe.
And they still couldn't stay in.
But
Mira
yeah,
was
like,
too much, mate.
it's all this money coming from European football that's sort of driving all the wealth being pushed to these teams as well. And when the wealth gets pushed to the teams and they're playing European football, they're going to get more broadcasted, which means they're going to be more popular, which means they're going to get more commercial sales, which means they're going to have more money, and it's
Quite the cycle.
yeah.
What we need is our coefficient to drop so badly that only the top team gets Champions League football and nobody else gets Europe at all. That's it.
I think Champions League football should be awarded on a lottery basis, so it could be any team in the league. They just roll a dice,
Norwich.
a 20-sided maybe.
Weren't they thinking about doing that, like the wild card entries into the Champions League before the European Super League was a
Well,
thing?
it's,
Maybe
it's
they
clear.
still
It's
are.
clear
think
where the
what-
money is, then, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, like, oh, we'll have these wild card for teams that haven't made it into Europe but previously had, i.e. teams like Tottenham and Arsenal
course, that one.
who would have been eligible for this.
How far back could they go with that? Because you could argue Nottingham Forest were in Europe.
Yeah.
You could. I
mean,
don't
they
know.
were.
I don't know.
Or,
I don't
or Leeds
know,
United.
Leeds were
Yeah.
in Europe. Aston
I
Villa
don't
were
know
in
how
Europe.
far back they'd go. If they would do it throughout the entire history of football, you would get a much different, or the entire history of European football, you would get a much different breadth of players than you would if they did it since, I don't know, the 90s or whatever.
Derby were in Europe.
I mean, imagine what playing in Europe now would do for Derby.
Oh, that'd be solve all their troubles.
Yeah, so maybe I've talked myself into this wild card idea. No, but I still think it's daft because I think it's a way to just allow teams who would traditionally make it but haven't performed well enough to then go and get in, not based on their own merit from that season. And I think that's a step in the wrong direction. But we'll see.
Yeah.
That was a very big tangent. Sorry.
The thing about talent, this is probably still on the tangent, but about Trent, specifically about Trent's fit in the England setup. It's not always the best players in the club team that makes for the best spot
Yeah.
in that position in the national team. Like I don't know too much about it, but I know a lot of people don't like Trent for the national team and think that Walker and there are other players who fit those national team tactics, fit Southgate tactics better than Trent does there.
Yeah.
Well, with Walker at the back, you have a stopgap because you can afford to play high line as he has the speed to cover back. But yeah, a player of Trent's ability on the ball.
We want him in there somewhere.
Yeah, that's the thing. You want to put him somewhere, but does he fit the system?
Yeah.
Yeah, because ability doesn't mean... If ability meant everything on its own, then the golden generation would have won everything. But as it is, it doesn't. And you need players to fit the style. You need players that are willing and able to switch to that style and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Like when people were complaining about the fact that Grealish wasn't getting minutes and like someone like was it someone like Mason Mount was? It might have just been that Mason Mount just gelled better with the rest of the players compared to Grealish.
Yeah.
It may have just been just something as simple as that, really. Like it's
hindsight
not
proves them
necessarily a
wrong,
reflection on who's better. It's just who complements the rest of the squad more.
I do find it interesting that Grealish was a superstar at Aston Villa and never got England game time and is a nobody at Man City and has got England game time.
I wouldn't be surprised if that reverses, though. The fewer games he gets for Man City, the more likely he is to be on the bench for England. Because I don't see, even though people accuse Southgate of having his favourites, to be fair, he does give time to players who've proven themselves in the Premier League. And yes, Grealish, we know he's good, but if he doesn't play a lot for City, then it's harder to justify including him in the first 11.
You can't base it on the form. Like you
No,
have to,
exactly.
looking at the form, he's got to look way back to find anything really.
But I mean, speaking of England, I think we have a good shot in this next World Cup. I really like the midfield pairing of Rice and Phillips, but I think the England team that Southgate has assembled is brilliant and very much based on who is right for the role.
You kind of
in that particular
yeah.
setup.
You kind of wonder though how much it will change, like when it comes to the World Cup. So, for instance, would Luke Shaw still be a left back?
Will Maguire still be first choice centre back?
Mark Gay, please.
Yeah.
And for the players like Phillips, do you think there's more pressure on them to try and keep that role? Do you think they have to do better than say the players from bigger teams? Say Maguire. Do you think Maguire's under as much pressure to keep his position in the national team as Phillips is?
I don't
know.
I think probably it's about the same. You'd assume it's about the same because Southgate has his favourites. Like, he has the people he will go back to who he knows he can rely on. So I think it'll be interesting to see how he actually sets up for the World Cup, considering players like Maguire who have been, frankly, shocking, and how much he wants to change it. Because we had a very, very successful team in the Euros. Like, do you change that and risk changing that for the World Cup because a couple of players are off form? Or do you put them back together in a team that has worked? Because where they've not worked is back in other teams. So bring them back into the England team. Maybe they'll fit again. Maybe they won't. So it'll be interesting to see what he does. But I would have thought the pressure is not higher on players like Rice and Phillips. I
think I was kind of tying players' form to the team's form. So teams like general stability. I don't know why. I just thought Phillips might be constantly teetering on the edge of just terrible Leeds form. Terrible.
Well,
form.
the thing is, Phillips hasn't played for us in ages. He's out injured and has been for months.
One of Leeds' many injuries.
Yeah, one of Leeds' many injuries.
Yeah, because Calvert-Lewin had a place in the England squad, but due to injuries mostly, there's no guarantee he'll still be in there.
Who do we think would be in the England team actually based on current form? Because I was thinking just then, like about how I mentioned the example of Luke Shaw and how I think is Chilwell still injured at the minute.
Yes.
So at left back, to be honest, I'm going to go out on a limb and suggest Tyrick Mitchell as a left back for England.
I wonder why you like.
Oh, I don't know why I would suggest Tyrick Mitchell. I don't know why I would suggest Crystal Palace's left back.
It's interesting because he continued to play Kane even when Kane was
at
not
left
playing
back.
well, right? Yeah,
he's a maverick. He is.
No, but like up front, like so Kane was not at his best, and he had other striker options available. I know none of them are of the same caliber as Kane, but Kane wasn't performing. So what do you do? And Southgate kept playing him, and eventually he scored. What was it, against Germany? Was that his first goal of the Euros or something? And after that, he was fine, but he wasn't playing well, and he still kept getting played. So I do wonder how much form will come into it for Southgate.
Yeah, I think I can still see Maguire having a first-team place. Even you never know. By the time the next World Cup comes around at the end of this year, Maguire may be back in form. But if he doesn't change his form,
Manchester United team.
That's the thing. Depends who comes in the summer and how they use him. If they do use him, because Rangnick, rumours say Rangnick is not a fan of Maguire. We'll have to wait and see.
No, he said supposedly, didn't he, that he is not good enough for Man United.
I'd have. Well, we're spoiled for choice really in the attacking midfield options. We've got a lot of good right backs as well. Pickford will likely stay in goal because he hasn't been awful.
He's faced a lot of shots this season, hasn't he?
Yep, he's got plenty of practice in. I'd like to see Trent in the team, even though it's not clear where you'd fit him in.
It's
midfield, maybe?
I like to see Ramsdale, but unless we put two.
Yeah, good point actually. That's a good point. Ramsdale could be first choice. He's had his move to Arsenal has been very good.
He has. It will be interesting to see what new faces Southgate brings and whether those new faces get into the team. So yeah, it will be interesting to see who Gareth Southgate picks to join the squad and who actually makes the first team for the World Cup. And any international friendlies beforehand, if there is any.
I can see Saka being a regular starter.
Yeah.
Of course, it depends on form because that's what the World Cup's a way off. But I can see Saka again being a regular. I can see Rashford not being in first 11, even maybe not even the squad. Again, unless things change.
Do you think there's
he's been awful.
like a Smith Rowe was the big debutant last break? Do you think there's going to be who do you think the newest
Oh, that's a good question.
debutant
Who
could
will
be?
the next up and comer? Well, there's who's that City youth player they keep bringing on?
Palmer.
Palmer. There's also that Everton player, the young Everton player. I can't remember his name.
Oh,
either.
Gordon, right?
Gordon, is it? Yeah,
Gordon.
he looks good. Yeah, so it could be.
There's a
Trying to
few
think of,
potentials.
I'd like to see Guehi, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Has he
definitely.
not made his debut?
Not for the first team.
He's the captain of the under-21s team.
He's got a good head on his shoulders, and he's good on the ball, decent in the
It's
air.
just a funny one to jostling the that's not the word. Mixing around the central defence is not as common. It's not done as much as you can't play around with it as much as you can forward.
Meanwhile, in the Premier League,
So Tottenham have won once at Stamford Bridge in the last 30 years.
Oh God,
Did you predict anything different prior to the recent game?
no.
Not really.
actually, I thought that Tottenham might win the game on the basis of I thought that Conte would have kicked them, up the backside, and Chelsea, who are on a fairly poor run of form, having not won any of the previous 4 games, could have bottled it.
Oh, that's a good point, but do remember it's Tottenham at Chelsea.
Previous 4 league games, I should say.
Yeah, that's true.
Plus, having already beaten Tottenham twice in the last 2 weeks before that, you would expect Tottenham to have figured them out. And they just didn't.
That's 4 times this season that Chelsea have beaten Tottenham. Aggregate score 8-0, I think.
Yeah.
When you're playing the same team in such close proximity, you would expect the results to change and not be the same.
3 times in 3 weeks they've lost,
1-0,
yeah.
2-0. Yeah.
So I'm not defending Tottenham, but there was the first goal could have gone to Tottenham, who I'm not defending. I think it was Thiago Silva went down. I think Kane had a goal ruled out because
He barely
Thiago
touched
Silva
Thiago Silva, yeah.
just went
Silva just fell over.
sprawling. And that
Some would
was-
call that clever play, some would call it simulation.
And then as it goes, as it always goes with these things, he doesn't get any punishment and goes on to score a significant goal later in the match. It just always happens. Some things you can predict.
Yeah. So, I guess maybe it was a difficult game for Tottenham. But Man United have made it to the top 4. Somehow,
Last
some way.
minute winner against West Ham.
Yeah.
A controversial one.
Yeah.
Again.
Paper-
VAR on and offside. I looked at it, to be fair, it did look very close, but it did look onside just.
It's a win that papers over cracks anyway, because Man United aren't exactly breaking records under Rangnick.
Oh, yeah. Again, it's another example of relying on... I mean, you can see it. Just look at the goal difference. Man City, 41. Liverpool, 39. Chelsea, 30. Manchester United, 6. It's such a huge drop-off. They're
Even
not
West Ham
scoring
have
the
a bigger
goals.
goal difference.
Yeah, West Ham have a goal difference of 10. Arsenal have a goal difference of 8. Tottenham, it goes back
Yeah,
down again. They have a
but
goal
Sam,
difference of 2.
Sam, you got to factor in they've got some really terrible attacking players like Cristiano Ronaldo, Jadon Sancho. I mean, Edinson Cavani. These players are not proven goal scorers.
Exactly.
It's ridiculous, and I think it's very much a case, and I've said this before, and I will continue to say it until they prove me wrong, of players playing for themselves and not the team, and just individual talent overriding any sort of actual.
Definitely, there's no direction at United. They bought players like Sancho for the sake of it. Sancho was a vanity signing, as was Ronaldo, and United's becoming the place where careers go to rot because Donny van der Beek, very good player, just got no chance there. He needs to move to have a chance of reigniting his career. Sancho, one of the best young talents in world football. What's he done since he's been there? Ronaldo isn't exactly setting the place on fire, but he is still getting goals, and despite his age, he's probably the exception. Rashford and Pogba, their careers have just gone.
Owning Ronaldo in fantasy football, that he is not scoring goals at the moment.
No, well, this is the thing. They've got all these fantastic players who are just not doing anything.
Remember at the start of the season when United were picking up points and viewed as one of 4 teams that could win the league, and by mid-October that they were out of the equation completely.
Now they're 9 points behind Chelsea, who are 10 points behind Man City.
I think we all had them in the top 2 or 3 at most in our predictions at the start of the season.
I think
Man U.
Ronaldo's arrival definitely changed expectations.
Oh
And the money they
man, did
spent.
I have Man United in the top 4
I think
in the predictions?
the
Yes.
top. Yeah.
Well, to be fair, since they won, United have had a bit of luck. They beat Newcastle 4-1, but Newcastle were on top for a significant amount of that game and could have taken the
Yeah.
lead.
I think Man United were very lucky against West Ham. West Ham, unlucky. They've now lost 2 games in a row, which is
Great for
less
Arsenal.
than ideal.
Actually, maybe it's
Good
brilliant.
for Arsenal, but not if the person they're losing to is Man United, right? You would surely have preferred a draw there.
Because that
I dunno.
pushes United further up, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah,
You
but
need
I
the
think,
teams around you to kind of level each other off. Yeah. So
I don't know.
West Ham was still good enough to get 5th, I think. 4th,
Now,
maybe.
With Arsenal's game in hands over both West Ham and Man United, they could be, in theory, above Man United. All they have to do is win their game in hand. Likewise, Tottenham, who are on
Yeah.
the same points as Arsenal and have an extra game in hand, could also do that.
Tottenham and Arsenal have to play each other still. North London
Wolves.
derby was delayed.
Oh yeah, sorry. Oh yeah. I wonder when that's going to be rescheduled. Sorry. They could also go above West Ham. I just realised they've got.
Wow. There are only 3 teams that haven't lost in the last 5 games: Man City, Wolves, and Brighton.
But Chelsea have been dreadful, apart from the win. That's 3 draws and a loss.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe the draws make it better than it actually. It looks a lot worse. Draws are fine.
Who were those draws against? The draws: Brighton, Liverpool. Brighton again. Did they?
Brighton.
They drew to
I love
Brighton. They drew at home to against Brighton on the 29th of December, and then drew away at Brighton on the 18th of January. Both 1-1.
It's that fabled
Consistency.
1-1 result, eh? Hey, Brighton.
Yeah.
It was a good. Like Brighton were. I don't know if we've really gone over the last game, but they looked from the highlights. They looked absolutely amazing. They did look quite good from the highlights.
It keeps happening though. They keep playing great. Yeah, but they keep playing good football, and then just can't convert.
Thank you for listening to this edition of the Flyers on the Ball podcast. Tune in next week for more.